and welcome back to this week's Fixing Football podcast. Me, Martin Naylor, and this week I'm with Liam O'Meara and Scott Naylor. Scott, how are you doing, mate?
I am very, very well, coming off a lovely weekend where I've managed to catch a little bit of a tan. So I'm very happy. How are you?
It's all good. The sun's out. Everyone's happy. Liam, how are you, mate?
I'm very well. I went away for the weekend. Unfortunately, I do not tan, and I am slightly burnt, but I am fine. I'm in a good mood, despite of that.
We get a week of sunshine and everything's a little bit better around here. So this week, there's a few things I want to speak about first, but we're going to be reviewing our pre-season. Well, they were sort of just as the season started, but our predictions for the Premier League and see who's got the most right. Then next week, also this week, we're going to have a special preview episode because, spoiler alert, there's a playoff final coming up. So there'll be a special preview episode for people to listen to on their way to Wembley, hopefully, for our Bolton listeners. And then we're going to be wrapping up the end of the season next week. So in between now and the Euros, there's a lot of time for people to be getting involved. So it would be great if people could comment and let us know if they want to get involved. If you want to come along and have a chat, if you want to talk about your football club or England or the Euros, let us know. And it'd be great to get some people on because there's loads to discuss in between the end of the season and the start of the Euros. So we're looking forward to that. Liam, I think we should start with the big match yesterday. Arsenal v Man United. 1-0. We got the job done. What do you think of the match for a start? I guess it wasn't great watching as a neutral.
Well, I'm not neutral. I think most people would agree. I'm not a neutral, I would say, when it comes to Man United. But
He's swayed.
yes, swayed is a better way of putting it. I think getting the job done is the best way of putting it. I think Arsenal commanded the game, I would say. They managed it well. They look every bit league winners, Arsenal, in a world without Man City. They genuinely do. They're a very, very talented team. And United just could not get a grip of the game. And I think that comes down to what a lot of people thought was that they'd struggle in midfield against Arsenal's really, really strong midfield area, particularly with Partey and Rice both playing.
And they had the chance as well, United too. Like we give them so much opportunity to to go and get something. I don't think we had a great game at all.
No,
It was professional, but it was like we didn't need to get going. We didn't need to be in, like, get out of trouble or anything like that. It was just easy.
I would say they had possession coming on to United. So you'd have times where Garnacho was carrying the ball towards the Arsenal defence. But very few times could have considered them breaching that defence then. Which is...
No, we were really solid.
Yes, and that's been the foundation of the season this year for Arsenal.
I know he got man of the match, but I thought Saliba was unbelievable yesterday. I know, like, him and Gabriel have both been great. Like, we've got the best defence in the league, but Saliba was just unbelievable. He's had a man of the match at the Etihad, at Anfield, and at Old Trafford this season. And funnily enough, he's not one of the ones nominated for PFA Player of the Year. So in the best defence in the league, which I thought was interesting, and Virgil van Dijk was. So,
you're always going to get that. I think Rodri isn't either, is he?
No, that's true.
There's only so many places in that, but I think most people watching the Premier League now would say that Saliba's probably one of the best defenders in the world, I would say. I don't think that's a stretch. I think the reason Arsenal have built on last season, I didn't think it. I know some people felt that maybe that was potentially a bit of a flash in the pan season for Arsenal. But I think Saliba being fit all year and the addition of Rice to it has allowed them to actually sustain themselves as title challengers year on year, I think.
Yeah, like people thought when we missed out on fourth, that was our opportunity to get fourth. And then we just got fourth and it was like that was a flash in the pan season. And then we went from that to, call it what you want, but a bottle in the league last season, spending most of the season at the top of the league, to go from that, and then that was a flash in the pan. But it's just been year on year improvement with Arteta, so it's great.
It takes a bit of time, I think, for people to trust it. I don't think it's any big on Arsenal. I remember this with Harry Kane, where every year it's like, it was a fluke. It was a fluke, and then now it's like, all right, maybe Harry Kane's pretty good actually. And I think it's just because people are used to the mean of Arsenal now being a club that was between 5th and 9th every year. That's where they were hoping. So I think it took people a while to sort of change that perception. I think we're getting that now. I don't know what you think, Scott.
I agree. Still, I've said it from day one. I still think Arsenal are benefiting massively from the rest of who would typically be your competitors for that end of the table being terrible. Man United, Chelsea have been non-existent. Liverpool last year weren't brilliant, and no one was expecting anything from them this year. So you've not really had anyone else to really push you. I don't think you've been the chasers of Man City. So again, I'm still not overly convinced that this will be in title-winning, Champions League winning side.
Can I just say though?
Maybe you will be. Maybe Arteta's going to start bringing some actual trophies home. But until that happens, I'm still can appreciate the good things about Arsenal, but I'm reserving a lot of praise for them until I start seeing something substantial.
Yeah, he's always going to be judged on trophies at the end of it all. But like you mentioned about other teams not being competitive, in Chelsea's 3 or 4 titles, I can't remember them being in a big out-and-out battle with anyone. They took advantage of when other teams had slipped and were great themselves. But there was never this win it on the last day scenario really with them.
No.
They'd had it wrapped up
not.
a bit, and they'd, like I said, they'd built a great team in whatever period of time it was in between each one and ran away with it. And like Leicester did their thing, other teams fell off. Shit just happens. You can only play in the now, and you can't judge us against City's team in 3 years' time if they get it back, or in Liverpool's team in 2 years' time, because it's just a different thing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think as well on that, leagues often aren't as close as I think more often than not there is a dominant runaway team, and there's the odd occasion where it goes down to the wire in the last day. But typically speaking, the team who wins it tends to win it by 7, 8, 9 points, if not more. Usually, there's a bit of a shit hits the fan moment for someone, and the arse falls out, and then someone just runs away with it. But
yeah, it's quite this title race has been quite impressive now. For three teams have been in it for a long time. Up until recently, It's been 3 teams. So I think that just shows the strength of the league. And you said other teams have fallen off, but for 3 teams to be at it as long as we have, I think the top of the top of the table has changed like 26 times this season, which is mental. Just to wrap this bit up, I'm going to be a Spurs fan for the next 48 hours. This is Monday night, so by the time people listen to this on Tuesday night, hopefully Tottenham have done something incredible. Now this is going down to, I'm really hoping Tottenham win, because a draw really makes goal difference the big decider on the last day. And after goal, there's only 2 or 3 goals in it. And after goal, I was looking this up last night just in case. After goal difference, it goes down to goals scored, where in other leagues it goes to the head-to-head. So what the scores were between Manchester City and Arsenal. In the Premier League, it goes to goals scored after goal difference, and City are edging us at the moment on that. So even though we've got 3 more on goal difference, they've scored 2 more goals than us or something.
They've made up a lot of ground, haven't they? I think there was a point a few weeks ago where the goal difference was like massively in Arsenal's favour.
It was about 10. Yeah, it was about 10 a couple of weeks ago, and now it's down to 2 or 3.
Shit. Damn.
So, yes, Tottenham fan for 48 hours. I'm hoping that they just have a mad one. City have a poor record there in the league, but they were the one there in the cup this year, so anything could happen. Tottenham are on a shite run of form, and have just arse fallen out of their campaign, which will be interesting to look at when we go back through our predictions from the beginning of the season. Scott, give us a quick roundup on Chelsea's fun game. It was at where was it at? At Nottingham Forest.
It was at the City Ground, and overall we started really, really poorly. I got the sense from the first 5 minutes or so that it would be a really difficult game because we didn't look at the races. We were a bit sloppy. We were the slowest to each 50-50. It weren't a great start. And when we took an early lead, I thought it was a moment of like proper quality, both from Palmer and Mudryk. I think from the assist and the finish. But I thought we were quite fortunate to take an early lead. And then when Forest came back into it, I mean, I probably should have mentioned it, but the fact that Hudson-Odoi scored came of zero. I was the least surprised person on the fucking planet when he called that in. It was a brilliant finish.
You put it in the WhatsApp group that it was inevitable, and it was.
Yeah, it always happens. But taking off, inevitability aside, it was a great finish from him. But yeah, I think something that we've seen this year again from Chelsea that we haven't seen is some backbone to fight back. We went 2-1 down. Typically, last season, we definitely would have just threw the towel in at that point, particularly with only, 15 minutes to play. And it showed Reece James's quality, I think, particularly for the winning goal. That's what a world-class player, which I think he is. That's what he brings, that sort of delivery after so long out of the team. I thought in his brief cameo, he was excellent. And it just showed that, hopefully, for all my complaints about Pochettino, we're moving in the right direction with him.
Well, I was glad you mentioned Poch because he come out fighting after the win, and he's almost pushed the owners into making a decision automatically, and he's come out and said about it's not just up to the owners, or he's trying to he was trying to fight his corner basically when he's always been questioned about his future. So, I mean, Liam, you give us your thoughts, but like, should he be staying now? Should they be putting Poch to nailed on for next season?
Since Boxing Day, only Arsenal, Liverpool and City have secured more points than Chelsea. What is the point of putting up with him getting it together and then when you start getting results, then getting rid? It makes no sense to do that. I get the frustrations early in the year and maybe he could have got a grip of it earlier on. But he's not a mug, is he? Like, he isn't a mug. He's a brilliant manager who now has a grip of what is a raw team. Got them playing so way. Getting improvements out of people. Like, Mudryk is improving. Jackson is improving. There is genuinely good signs there. Yes, it maybe could have happened quicker, but it's happened now. So, why change it now? It would baffle me if they made that decision, Scott. Obviously, you're closer to it than me, but from the outside, it would baffle me to do it now.
And it would me as well. But I think my position on it has been, in the absence of somebody truly above Pochettino, like, I don't know, an Ancelotti, or it would never happen, but Klopp, or someone who is clearly the next step above him. In the absence of somebody like that, I agree, it makes no sense to do it. The other options you've got out there, okay, they're the sexy flavour of the month, your Xabi Alonso's, your Thiago Motta's, deserve it, even though I don't rate him very highly. But whoever you want to throw out there again, they need money and time. Everything that Pochettino needed when he first came in. And again, it's a relatively unknown entity that you're going into. So I agree. I think it makes zero sense without somebody truly world-class coming in. You may as well just stick with what you have. Apparently the players like him for the most part. He's got the buy-in of the team. And these Martin, you mentioned these comments that he's made midweek, and he's sort of, I wasn't really a big fan of that from him because, like you said, it just shows that it shows that these owners can't even get on with the guy that they handpick after omitting the likes of Nagelsmann, Enrique, sacking Tuchel, all these people who have been in and around the Chelsea job. They picked this guy because they thought he was the one to fit their whole thing. And if they can't get on with him, it's just... So I don't know how much there is to it. He, after the win against Forest, he did back down a little bit and said, no, I am happy here. My comments got misconstrued, which I don't think was the case at all. I do think he's somewhat trying to get a rise out of the owners, and there's a lot of noise around, he's going to have an end of season review. They're going to review the season in total, but doesn't every manager have that? Is that not just normal? So I think a lot's being made of it where they're trying to find smoke where there's no fire, I think.
All right, well, I guess we've just got to let that one cook for a bit and see what happens. I think if there is going to be a decision made, it'll be soon after the end of the season because it just makes sense to have someone in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. One thing on that, though, what would be wild, continuing on Liam's point about it being crazy to fire him, in that you're essentially making this decision on the back of other teams' form. Because he could win the last couple of games convincingly. But if Newcastle still win both their games, we don't get Europa League. That's just how it goes. And that's allegedly what their minimum standard is. Apparently, Conference League isn't good enough to keep him in a job, allegedly. So it does baffle me that he could do everything right, win all his remaining games, and still it's not really in his hands at the moment. So to make it based on if that is the defining thing, I also think that's a little bit weird because he could also really stutter and have terrible performances the last two games, but other results go his way and he just about scrapes it and he gets Europa League. So it's a weird one. I do think it'd be a crazy thing to do to get rid of him without somebody top coming in. So yeah, we'll see.
It sounds like from the chatter online as well, it sounds like that's the sort of common consensus among Chelsea fans anyway. Right, Liam, I want to move on, but we'll only cover this quickly because, like I say, we're going to do our preview episode. But since we last spoke, Bolton have reached the playoff final. You were there at packed Tough Sheet Community Stadium. So no shock here, as everyone knows, but Bolton are in they actually lost the game. First of all, what did you think of the game? And also, what do you make of all the chat about the post-match celebrations? Because you've been victims of the celebration police this week.
Well, I'll start with the game itself. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. 90 minutes of pure fear. I did predict this. There is going into a game like that, you almost can't win because you're theoretically you're so far ahead that you're only there to be shot at, and the other team can play without fear. And as I keep saying with the playoffs, there's no mugs in it. Like that's the team that finished sixth, so they're not. And Barnsley for a long time were pushing for automatic. They fell off at the end of the year with I think 2 wins and 11 of the last 11 games, but they still finished sixth. So that gives you an idea of the levels they were hitting.
Yeah.
I think as recently as March they were within a win of second. So you're talking a strong side. So I've absolutely no surprise to me that the game played out the way they did. It was horrible though. Like I hated every single minute of it.
I can relate to you. I had this yesterday, so I'm fully on board. I hated every second of that Arsenal United match. But please go on. So obviously they lost, but you still got the job done, which was the most important thing. Talk to us about the post-match stuff. Did you make it onto the pitch?
I did. Yes, absolutely. And the celebration police, a lot of it's coming from people that are the usual suspects here. And they tend to come from one team, I think, and it's usually United fans who are the arbiters of how fans should behave always. You know, the brackets, top reds, closed brackets, that decide how fans should always behave and sit there from their smug Twitter accounts telling you that, you know, they wouldn't have done that. But the truth is they don't understand why we went onto the pitch, number one. They seem to think it's about promotion. It's absolutely nothing to do with that. And this is where, and I don't want to be that guy that talks about the match-going fan and the non-match-going fan. I don't make those digs, you know. But there is a key difference here. If you look on Bolton forums now, if you look on Bolton Twitter accounts, no one's talking about promotion. It's the fucking day out at Wembley. That's what we're celebrating.
Yeah.
It's the best thing in the world, like, to go to Wembley. You get pissed all day with these people that you watch so much shit with. Like, the amount of dross I've watched in that dreary fucking stadium over the years, right? So, that's what you're celebrating. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I saw some digs at the players maybe having a beer after the game as well. That game was fucking horrid, right? If they can't have a minute to sort of pat themselves on the back and say, well, it's a week and a half to the game. Like, of course, you've got the human beings. Like, allow them to enjoy a sense of achievement for a minute, dust themselves off, and go to it. And, you know I have been a little bit critical of Arsenal, so there's a bit of an element of hypocritical here. But I do think that it's a bit relentless of Arsenal. Like, it's a bit weirder. There's a bit of a weird edge to it, and I'm not just saying that. I think it's part of Arteta's psyche. I think he wants them to be like that. I think he's taking it from Klopp a little bit with how Klopp was when he was trying to turn Liverpool around and they're like giving it to the crowd after drawing at home with West Brom and all that famous picture. I think that there is an element of that with Arteta. He's trying to make them see success even if they don't have trophies, like Scott said, to understand the journey that they're on, kind of thing. So I'm not going to.
But every time we've been dug out for celebrating, it's been a time when we've overcome a specific hurdle. Not necessarily, you should only celebrate when you win a trophy, but like I'm trying to think of which match it was when we were celebrating it. But like beating Liverpool and then digging them out for 6 points this season, that's massive in a title race. That is a big hurdle.
Yeah.
And it's a moment. So this should be celebrated. And it's not like there was fireworks and parades for one match. It was just a couple of comments and like some good times with the fans. The fans are buzzing. The players are celebrating with the fans. So
yeah,
I don't. People should celebrate as much as they want for all I care.
I take it back a little bit, but I also do think, in hindsight, Bolton fans, we really got a bit carried away in the moment, right? I'll accept that. I will accept that. But, and I didn't actually expect us to go on the pitch. I didn't think that was going to happen. It just, obviously, once one person you're not going to not go on. If everyone's gone on, you're not going to just stand there like, I'm not going to go on, because, no one's going to go on Twitter, well, Bolton fans are going, but fair play to Liam O'Meara. He didn't go on. He knows there's still a job to be done. Of course I fucking went on.
Yeah, with the Noel Gallagher. The Noel Gallagher stood on your stands and you're
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, it's mint going on the pitch. I've done it, that's the third time I've done it now. It's always you get great pictures. It's good. It's good.
The first time I did it, I did my work experience at Wigan with a few, obviously in high school. And as a reward for the work experience, we got tickets to their last match of the season. I think it was against Ipswich, but it's when they secured promotion to the Premier League. And we just sat there and everyone started running onto the pitch. I was like, oh, fuck it, yeah, let's get on.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you did your work experience there. I think mine was at Bury, actually.
Yeah.
Bury
yeah,
FC.
a few of us. In fact, Luke did it with me. Yeah, me and Luke.
I like him to tag along on somebody else's adventures. That's very unlike him. Usually goes and does his own thing all the time.
Well, we'll wrap up Bolton because, like I said, we're going to do our special preview episode leading up to the final. So we will catch everyone sometime on Friday, and hopefully people will be able to listen on their way down to Wembley and crack on, and we can give our thoughts on everything there.
Do I need to be on that?
It would be beneficial if the Bolton fan is on that one. Right. So that wraps up most of the stuff. Obviously, City win again. They battered everyone. Everyone's a Tottenham fan for 48 hours. And then it's down to the last day. We've took it down to the last day for the Premier League, which takes us nicely on to our Premier League predictions. So, at the beginning of the season, I'm sure our avid listeners will remember us all making big predictions about who would win the league, who would be going down, basically a bit of everything. So, I think now enough, pretty much everything is wrapped up. I think it's a good time to go over them. And Scott, we'll start with you, and we'll start with the bottom three. Me and you both predicted it would be Everton, Sheffield United, and Luton. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they say.
It's not, no. I think the biggest story there is it's actually Luton. I mean, we all thought Luton were going down, but we all had it on the basis that they were going to be the worst Premier League team of all time. Not win one game, absolutely smashed every single week, and it's just not really worked out that way. They've actually given a good account, as good of an account of themselves as I think they possibly could have with the squad that they had and the resources available. So fair play to them for actually listening to the Fixing Football podcast feedback earlier in the season and actually giving it a go. So
yeah, I agree.
Fair play to them. I don't know what we were smoking, not putting Burnley in there. We were hypnotised by the Vincent Kompany champagne football Kool-Aid. I don't know what was going on there, but they've been dreadful.
Well, as you mentioned that, someone who wasn't drinking that Kool-Aid was Mr. O'Meara, who had the same as us, but with Burnley and Sheffield United, you thought that they would do enough to stay up and that Burnley would be the ones who go down.
Yeah, I think I based it on... They made 2 late signings, didn't they? Of Gus Samer and Cameron Archer.
Yes.
Late on. I think I based it off that. And it wasn't anywhere near enough. They did sign Ben Brereton Diaz over the January as well, and he seemed to have a bit of an effect, but I don't think they were ever really in it, Sheffield United. I think they've kind of got a few little results since Chris Wilder's taken over, but it's not really ever got going. I just think they conceded so many goals. I think that was they never had a chance. Like, they never had a chance, which I'm thinking about it, I can't believe I didn't put them in. Even, but you know, you get caught up in the moment. I will give a nod to Everton as well, because I know, obviously, you know, another one of my predictions, spoiler alert, was that Sean Dyche should be the first to go. I thought they were an absolute basket case.
So did Scott. Scott had Dyche as well.
And I said that as well.
What a job that Dyche done. And considering that, like, Calvert-Lewin has never scored a goal for them, even with that, they seem to have done that. It's a brilliant, brilliant job. So well done, Everton. And that hurts every fibre of my inside to say that.
Just quickly on Everton, how many points did they get docked again? Remind me.
8 altogether.
8 in total, yeah.
8. Damn, they'd be like top half if that didn't happen as well. So they were miles away from where we thought they'd be. So fair play to them.
Well, that takes us on to first manager sacked, and only one of us predicted that would be right. Oh, by the way, we should mention that Luke had Wolves to go down, and that Gary O'Neill would not be able to hack it, were his comments.
He did say that.
No, to be fair, Gary O'Neill was thrown in like a day before the season started, but has done a great job. And
yeah, I think there was a lot of... We talked a bit about Wolves, I remember, because of sort of Lopetegui throwing his toys out the pram, which is a great thing for West Ham, which we touched on in the last podcast, if you want to listen to that, West Ham fans. So with Gary O'Neill, he looks a really competent manager, to be completely honest. He's changed his styles as well. It's a different style of play he's adopted at Wolves than he did at Bournemouth. It was a little bit more all hands to the pump, really, at Bournemouth. And what he's done at Wolves, he's got them playing. But they do have a lot of talented players. Like Aït-Nouri's really kicked on this season. Cunha's been playing a lot more in that centre-forward position.
Even without Neto as well for most of the season.
Well, they're never going to have Neto, are they? He's got legs made of biscuits, so he's never going to... Like, if he ever gets fit, he'll just get bought by a Big Four team. He's a world beater him on his day.
Yeah.
But, yeah, great job he's done.
I predicted Paul Heckingbottom would be the first manager sacked, and that was right. But, question for you both. Liam, you could take it first. Are you surprised at the lack of manager sackings this season and the role that maybe PRS or FFP or whatever has played in that?
I hadn't really thought about it till you asked me.
There's only
probably, yeah.
There's only been Heckingbottom has been sacked, and Roy Hodgson was, he was taken ill, and I think they were planning on moving him on anyway, and it all sort of happened like that. But those have been the only 2 managerial changes as far as I can think.
Really?
Only Roy Hodgson and Heckingbottom, which is pretty mad, to be honest, and it's surprised me, really.
Kind of. It maybe is PSR/FFP. But I think what's played a part in it as well is, whilst I agree with Scott's sort of generous words with Luton, and I do agree with that, I think they give it a go, they're going to finish on quite a low point total in 18th at what, 27 points they're on now?
Well, they did mention that the bottom 3 is the lowest total point score of any bottom 3.
Yeah. So I think not many teams. I think Forest change manager as well, mine. You're on 3.
Did they? Who's?
Yeah, they went to Santo, didn't they?
Oh, of course. Sorry, yeah.
I think Forest were probably the only team in the end that were really worried, and they changed. I think that played a big part. Most teams tend to do it if they're panicking and they're looking for a reaction. I think if their Premier League status is secure, they'll probably wait to the end of the year, like Moyes and West Ham. So I don't think they've had that same thing. It's probably more that, I think, than PSR.
Fair enough. Let's review our sort of top spots. Now, when we predicted this, we were under the assumption that the Premier League would be owed another Champions League spot. So we predicted a top 7 for European places. And Liam and Scott, you both had Brighton quite high up. Are you surprised at where Brighton are and where they've ended up?
With hindsight, no. But at the beginning of the season, if you told me that they'd be, just about scraping the top half, I would have. I wouldn't really have believed it. But they have had, again, the squad kind of got a little bit decimated. They yet again sold the best player, second, probably third year on the spin, and this model that they have of find kids from South America and in the slums and bring them to England and buy them for about 55 quid and sell them for 120 million to mugs like Todd Bowley. That works well, but eventually you're going to hit some duds. Like they did it with Bissouma. They sold Bissouma, and then Casado came in, and that kind of works. Like they had this ready-made replacement brought in. So that is like an example of the strategy working. Like sold Cucurella, a Stupinian came in. Again, I don't think he cost them very much. But eventually you're going to hit some duds if you're shopping in these markets. And I think this is kind of the issue that they've had, as well as injuries to like Mitoma, to Estupinian. Evan Ferguson's been out for quite a while. So I think they've suffered a little bit that the squad's been kind of pulled apart, and De Zerbi's realistically not really going to get the right kind of backing to replicate what he did last season, I don't think. So not too surprising on the balance of it all, but yeah, not sure what you think.
No, just I think that's right. Brighton have, and not even necessarily duds, they've not brought them on to the next step. I mean, each, like Caicedo was probably an improvement on Bissouma as well at that point coming in, and then you sort of always looking for an even bigger star when actually Brighton they're playing still at a good level. They've had some batterings, they've had some poor performances, but they've not had a terrible season. They've just been on such an upward trajectory for so long that sometimes that hits a bit of a wall. Liam, you didn't have Aston Villa in your top 7 and cited that Emery might struggle. But the rest of us did have them in our. In fact, I had them 5th, Scott had them 5th, and Luke had them 6th. Any regrets on that? I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's, again, easy with hindsight, but I'm just trying to get into the mindset of why I thought that.
These are all assumptions.
Obviously, you've recently listened to it. Did I qualify that ludicrous statement?
Yeah. You weren't so sure that Emery's signings would have been good enough. You mentioned that maybe West Ham had done a better job as well in terms of the signings, and that.
I stand by that a little bit, but what I don't stand by is, and what I've probably not factored into that, is Emery as a coach.
And
I don't think anyone would have predicted as good a player as people rated him, the form of Ollie Watkins almost all season, to get you 20 odd goals or whatever he's on. He's been unbelievable for him.
Yeah.
And so
Douglas Luiz has really
stepped on. Yeah.
He's as good as any midfielder in the league now. And Tielemans has been better than I expect, particularly in the second half of the season. I would say he's stepped up. So yeah, I was fucking well wrong with that. And Brighton, I think in hindsight with them, I probably got caught up in the De Zerbi loving at that point. When
big
case that he's riding on the Cooper.
Yeah.
Cooper? Is it Cooper? No. I can't remember the name of that manager.
The old Potter.
Graham Potter.
Yeah.
Big Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. Just,
listen.
Potter's good job at Brighton. I think he was riding on that.
Speaking of things going wrong, we can talk about Luke's predictions and, in turn, Manchester United, because we all had them comfortably in the top 4/5. but they've had a stinker. And I think that's probably the big surprise where all of our... Now, we don't have to harp on about Man United again. If you want a Man United podcast, listen to the Overlap, because that's fucking all they seem to talk about. But Luke had Liverpool winning the league with Man United a close second. And he cited that, Liam, you were the reason because you'd promised Bolton would get automatic promotion. And Luke is a man of his word. So he can't...
Sound logic, isn't it?
Once he said something, there is no going back. That's your opinion forever.
Okay. I'm not sure what the question was there, mine, but
It wasn't really a question. It was just more to poke. It wasn't just poke fun at Luke's predictions.
yeah, Luke. I think, like quite a lot of United fans, got a little bit carried away with how Ten Hag ended last season, and I think he expected big things this year. And
well, in fairness, we all did. We all had them in the top 4 or 5.
I thought they'd be better. Yeah, Scott didn't have them in the top 5.
Scott didn't. No, you're right. I'll
I
let
did
you
not.
off there.
I would like it on the record that I actually had them 7th, which is still possible, but funnily enough,
They've a
could be
strong
taken
finish.
by us.
By the way, if people want to listen to this episode, it's from about 8 months ago. It's from the start of September. And Luke, when Scott mentioned that Man United was 7th, Luke was like, "You need to explain yourself."
He was highly upset.
Well, right. Let's move on from that. By the way, I have Arsenal winning the league. You two both have City winning the league. Like I said, Luke had Liverpool. All not terrible predictions, 3 of which can still be correct as we stand today. So,
Have we all got the top 3 as the top 3, if you will? The same 3 teams in the top 3 that are.
I had United 3rd.
Wow.
I actually thought they would have a good season, and I was horrifically wrong in a hilarious way that I would love to accept. What else? Scott had Tottenham 4th, which is still in the realms of possibility. So Luke did have Chelsea 4th. That is equally hilarious.
Luke seems to think Chelsea are still Chelsea from 05 in his head. Like, the way he talks about Chelsea, he seems to still think that it's the same Chelsea spine that has never aged, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, he still thinks John Terry's there. He always says, yeah, but it's Chelsea. Yeah, I know that, but you're not computing that we are no shit.
he's still got like a lion on the badge in Luke's head. And like,
yeah. CFC Lion.
Let's move on. Quick one. We all had clean sweep for Haaland, top goal scorer. That looks like it's going to be the case. He's 4 ahead of Cole Palmer. Quick shout for Cole Palmer. None of us had him as signing of the season, but he probably is the signing of the season.
Yeah, fucking unbelievable. I don't even know if he. I don't even know if he joined at the time we'd done those predictions. But even then, when it got announced that he was like our deadline day deal, I will hold my hands up and like, what the fuck is this? Like, he looks like anyone. I just thought he looks okay. Like, nothing against him, and he could be all right, but never in a million years did I think he'd have the impact that he's had. And like anybody, I need to stay consistent and not be a hypocrite. For me, he's got to go and do it again, or at the very least, be somewhere in this realm to be considered, one of the elite young players in the world. Because anyone can have a good season, but if you can keep it up, it's fucking wonderful news for us and for England as well.
Yeah, I mean, can't disagree. I think he is the signing of the season, which we will come on to in a minute. But first off, I want to go with FA Cup and League Cup winners. And who won the League Cup? Where am I at here?
Liverpool.
Liverpool won the League Cup. None of us had that.
Focus.
I had Liverpool winning the FA Cup. Liam and Luke both had Arsenal winning the FA Cup, and Scott had Chelsea. So none of our predictions can be correct here with Man City or Man United.
For League Cup?
City. Scott had Arsenal. Liam had the same as you. Arsenal, City, in that way around.
Yeah. To win, but next year we'll do cup winners. We'll not specify because it's kind of the same thing in a way.
Just put 2 in, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a better way of doing it.
Fair.
I think a good topic of discussion is the best and worst signings. And
I wonder why this is going to be. I wonder why you want to talk about this.
I think there's some interesting ones. I'll start with me and we'll talk about both at the same time. I went with my best signing. I put a lot of faith in Sofian Amrabat.
Looking back at this,
Oh yeah, right.
this is brilliant.
But I thought a £10 million loan. I think I deserve a place on the Man United board here with this one. But no, I just really rated him. At the time, this was a top signing of someone who Man United really needed. Little did I know the guy who's going to be in charge of him week in, week out was such a massive idiot.
Do you know how there's a gif of Hakim Ziyech playing like a switch ball for Ajax, and it's like perfectly straight, and whoever's done it has done it on a really good camera. And it's one of those that makes it in compilations on YouTube, and you're like, oh my god, this guy's incredible. Like that built Ziyech's whole career. That one gif of him playing that ball made his career, and I feel like that tackle that Amrabat made on Mbappe in the World Cup is the same thing. Like anytime anybody tries to justify him, they pull up that tackle. It's like if he didn't make that one challenge, that guy would be an absolute bum, and he'd be absolutely nowhere. He's terrible.
No, he's. Yeah, I mean, he had a stinker yesterday, and he's just barely played. When he's played, he's been at left back. He's been all over the show. I think he's been mismanaged, but he's also not done he's not done a great job either. Worst signing, I went with Mason Mount, and I think this is up there.
Oh god, yeah.
I like both your thoughts on that.
I'm pretty sure.
Go on.
Oh, go on.
Let me go first.
Go for it, mate.
I feel like you're going to be harsh, and I want to give him some slack before you be harsh on him. He's been injured a lot. He has been injured a lot, but he hasn't. In his opportunities, he hasn't looked brilliant. And that problem that we talked about, that clashing in positionally with Bruno Fernandes, has played out when they have played together.
Yeah,
quite dramatically.
Well, that was my reasoning. That is the fact that I don't see where he fits. And clearly neither does Ten Hag. Liam, will go to yours, and you had James Maddison as your best signing. Now, 10 games into the season, no one would have argued with you here. But since then, it's been a bit of a dud.
His injury really held him back, and it was quite a long injury as well, wasn't it?
It dragged on, yeah.
Yeah, good few months, 3 or 4 months in the end. And he has played well recently since coming back. I remember, I can't remember which game it was, where I think he scored from the outside of the box and assisted another. But yeah, he's been good. He has been good. It's not a terrible shout, that. I'll give myself some slack on that one.
Scott, I guess you agree, because you also had the same.
I did. Yeah, I thought, and he started out, like you said, really, really well, and like all of us expected that he would. But I think he got injured against us, actually, when we battered him. I think they picked up a couple of injuries in that game, and yeah, just disjointed the whole season for Spurs and for him. Well, I think Angie's more to blame for that, but yeah, it's a shame he didn't kick on and prove me correct.
Well, that takes us nicely on to both of your worst signings, which were also the same. Everyone's favourite person to hate, Kai Havertz, worst signing of the season. On track to win a Premier League title. Very influential in this running. No need to wince, Liam. He has been influential. He's been great in this system. Now, you can look at stats and stuff, but regardless of what you want to say about stats, who's better and stuff like that, he isn't the worst signing of the season.
Right. The only reason he's not the worst signing of the season is because Mason Mount is actually the worst signing of the season. He's only been superseded by how poor that whole move is, for whatever reason you want to cut it, injury, manager, performances, whatever. That's been a disaster. But Kai Havertz is the same player as he was at Chelsea. He has not improved. He has not changed. He is the same. Okay, his goal return is slightly better, but that is more because he's playing in a better team with better people around him. He isn't actually... You've got exactly what we had. If he was shit then, he's shit now. He's just playing with some better people in a more cohesive squad that will afford him more opportunities. And like anything, you go to work and everyone's happy, you probably do a better job. If you go to work and everyone's a miserable fuck, you're probably not going to enjoy it. And I think that is exactly what's happening with Kai Havertz. I still think, if not for Mason Mount, he would still be the worst signing, because he was 65 million fucking quid for 11 goals or whatever he's got. It's just, it's poor. It's very poor. I still stand by it. But Liam, what do you think?
It's hard. It's a hard one, right? Because I land somewhere in the middle of you both with it, because I think his influence is being overstated in this sort of genius Arteta story being sort of peddled a little bit. Like, I do agree with Scott. I think he's a very similar player. I think he's managing to be better at being a 9 with experience. I think Chelsea sort of threw him in at the deep end with that. And Arsenal may be benefiting from the fact that he had to learn in a deep end that was set on fire kind of situation. And as he's gone on, progressed through the season, and I think as good players, as Scott rightly points out, your Saka's, Odegaard's, Trossard particularly, seem to be getting a tune out of Havertz because they're learning how to use him. And a lot of his goals tend to be either fortunate positionally or goals from set pieces. He's very good in the air. He's like 9 foot tall, isn't he?
Yeah.
I can't disagree with them points.
But he does seem to be very good in these games where you don't necessarily expect to have possession. I think you'll bet these games like United away, your result against City, that false 9 possession-based forward that I think you signed Jesus to be, by the way. I think he's very much... I think Jesus is a complete flop as far as Arsenal are concerned now. I think there's no discussion on that now.
Yeah.
Havertz has stepped up to the plate where Jesus hasn't, and I think for that, he does need to be commended, and he has been good. I don't think he's been brilliant. I think that's overstating it, but he has been good. He's not the worst signing of the season.
That I can't disagree with your points. Obviously, I watch a lot more of a full game than you. I'm really surprised at how much ground he covers for someone who looks so lazy and cumbersome, just mooching around the pitch. He's one of our. He's right up there on our stats of like ground covered in a match. He's bought into the pressing game well. I'm quietly impressed with him, even though it took a long time to get going. I'm not saying he's the best signing of the summer. There's still a long way to go for him to do anything super significant for me as an Arsenal player. But he fits this team really well. He seems really intelligent on the ball, like some of his touches and stuff like that. And maybe we are just a better suited team for him than Chelsea ever were.
I don't think you are. And again, he was always at the top of our ground covered in a game. You'd think he's just walked everywhere, and he was always up there for it. Like, this is what I mean, is it's the same. Like, you've not got anything different than what we've got, or just that. I don't think Arsenal are a better fit for him. I think you just got overall more quality, so it's easier for him to do whatever it is that he does. Whereas when he was with us, he was kind of, you need to be the main man. You need to go and be, I don't know, the Saka or the Odegaard or whatever, whoever you got. I don't know who you deem your main player to be. But basically what Cole Palmer is for us, that's what we wanted him to be. And he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. And I just don't think he's ever going to do it for you. And yes, I don't really think it's anything to do with the team. I think other people could do his job, and I think you've just got the same product. I don't think there's been any improvement at all. I think he's in a nicer environment to work in.
I don't disagree with the word you're saying. It's almost the way you're saying it with that Chelsea spite in the background, that bitterness that I can taste through the earphones. So I'm just, but it's funny you talk about main players. That takes us nicely on to Luke's predictions for best player, which was Declan Rice. And I'd like your thoughts on that, and maybe who we do see as the signing of the season. For me, signing of the season, there's sort of 2 facets here. Is the price they came in for, whether they've been value for money, and general performances in general as well. And I don't think anyone can fault Declan Rice's performances, and the price tag matches that. He has been a £100 million player for start. He's worth more than that to me now. He's unbelievable, far better than I ever give him credit for. But for me, signing of the season has got to be Cole Palmer, just for value for money. If Chelsea wanted to sell him now, they'd get 150 million for him. He's fantastic. Yeah. He's everything you could want in an attacking player, creative player, whatever you want. So, hats off to Chelsea for that one. I mean, he took enough shit at the wall, some of it's going to stick. And
yeah.
But Luke predicted Rice, so what do you think on that one, Liam? Any other thoughts on Rice?
Yeah, he's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm trying to predict the single best player is very difficult. In terms of Luke's prediction that Declan Rice would be one of the players of the season, I think that's been borne out, to be honest. I think we're looking at one of the best centre midfielders in the world. I was talking in the group chat that we have yesterday. You're looking at one of the best centre midfielders in the world, I think, in Declan Rice.
I agree.
He can do everything. He can do absolutely everything. He really has driven Arsenal this year. I would personally say, in a world where you don't upset Ødegaard, that he is Arsenal's natural leader in that team already.
1,000%.
Looking in, yeah.
Ødegaard is like the talisman of the team. He's the figurehead, but Declan Rice is the natural leader. He's everything. He's everything you could want, especially in a midfielder, but in a player for your club in general. I'm so impressed by him.
So yeah, I don't think Luke stuck his neck out with that guess. However, I think it's fair to say that it was a correct one.
Well, going on next being stuck out, he put Iwobi on the chopping block as the worst signing of the season. I think he really had it out for Fulham with Marco Silva as his nomination for being first manager sacked, based on them selling Mitrovic. But Iwobi is the worst signing. And I don't know. He's not pulled up any trees, but he's not a bad season.
I mean, was he ever going to? Like, I don't know what he expected of Alex Iwobi. I don't think anyone's been keeping an eye on how Iwobi's been playing. Oh, he better do something, this lad. Like, he was just there to.
If we were talking about,
he was a very weird one.
If we were talking about when he went from Arsenal to Everton for 30 million quid, then yeah, that would have been a terrible signing. But for this one, Everton to Fulham, it's just is what it is. I don't think there was any real scrutiny on it. Is there anything to add, Liam?
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I was going to split up football, Iwobi, this year. He's been a constant in that team, and it's a Fulham team that's done very well. I can't say I've watched Fulham with any huge amount of interest in, but I don't see how Iwobi has done that. Although I do see Luke's point, because I watched Iwobi in a pre-season friendly for Bolton against Everton, and I think I remarked at the time that he was dog shit in that game. Like, he was horrifically bad. So when Luke mentioned that, I did sort of make that point, but I think it was at Everton's first week of pre-season, so maybe I was being a bit harsh. But
Mate, I was saying it about Iwobi when he broke through at Arsenal, and people were telling me he was the next thing, and he was just a mess. I was laughing my head off when Everton bought him. But yeah, I remember slagging him off in the Europa League final. I couldn't stand him at this point, and then he went and scored the goal of his career, even though we ended up losing 4-1. It was, I think he got the goal of the game, was a volley from the edge of the box. So it's just typical of a shit night where he scores an unbelievable goal. Anyway, that rounds up our predictions. We will find out next week who has got the winner of the Premier League season. I'm not sure who's got the most right here, but I do know who's got.
Yeah, I'm not doing great, I must admit. I'm looking back at the list and it's not gone well.
Well, I'll tell you who's got the most wrong, and it's not one of us three. It's Mr. Peter Foley.
What a turn up for the books that is. Who would have thought that Luke was bottom?
Speaking of Luke being wrong about everything, we kind of glossed. We're talking about worst signing. None of us really mentioned Højlund in retrospect. That's been an absolute horror show.
Yeah, that's true. So we did talk about who was probably the best signing, but as far as bad signings go, he's got to be right up there.
Yeah,
terrible.
I'm racking my brains to try and think who else was such a terrible signing this summer. But
I think Trafford to Burnley was a bad signing as well. I think I talked about this at the time. I think I said that was the worst move for everyone, because they were investing a lot of money in a goalkeeper who, yes, had a very, very good season at Bolton and with England at the under-21s Euro Championships or World Cup, whichever. Every some of them. But do
you remember what the fee was?
20 million.
It was right. So it was it was expensive.
Yeah, it was expensive. And a move he couldn't turn down. because you have to take that move if you're Trafford, because
Sure. Yeah.
you know, if there's one thing City don't want any issues with, it's their books. So if you're gonna an academy player getting 20 million, you're gonna go. So it was just a terrible move for everyone, and he's found himself out of the team to another City academy goalkeeper that Burnley have. Has looked terrible as well. So it's just been a horror show. That 20 million could have been used so much better for Burnley.
I feel sorry for Trafford, really, because he's been chucked into playing away, which takes a very special kind of goalkeeper and what Kompany wants from someone. I think Kompany's cost Burnley their status this season. I don't think it's down necessarily to the players. We said that they've made some decent signings coming into the season. And yeah, I feel sorry that he was sort of made a bit of a scapegoat at some point as well.
I would love to do an episode on that. I called that in September that was going to be Burnley's downfall. This Vincent Kompany audition season, basically, where he uses Burnley as a platform to show his playing style. Because you have to do that to build your career, and he will probably in a normal season where teams can actually try and stay up, there will be managerial sackings, and if Burnley are doing well, I wouldn't be surprised if Kompany gets a Leeds job or a Nottingham Forest job, and that's what this season was about for Kompany. And Burnley fans won't have that; they won't accept that. But it's the unfortunate truth. He doesn't give a shit about Burnley, in my opinion. Or if he did, he'd have played a way that might have tried to stay up. Look at Gary, for example, who used to keep Burnley up comfortably.
I think it's a worthwhile topic to something to think about, because, like I said, they've been confirmed as going down, and it is what it is with them. They've tried something, it's not worked, and no one's been willing to fix it, which is what we're doing, fixing everything. Lads, that nicely wraps up our predictions. We need to think of a forfeit. Now, Luke's idea for a forfeit of the person who gets the most wrong would be to change your Twitter handle that I support someone else's team, which is fine. But when someone who doesn't use Twitter suggests that, then it sort of goes out the window a little bit. So I need to think of a forfeit for Luke, and I want to hear what people suggest in our comments.
That feels very pointed at me, that forfeit, I must admit. It feels like he's very much hoping that I lose there, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is. I would agree.
So, as our most active Twitter user, it can only be aimed at you. But yeah, I'd like people to suggest some forfeits for Luke in the comments section, please. And also comment if you would like to come on an episode sometime in between the Euros, during the Euros, whatever. It's a long summer ahead of us, and we're going to have we're going to be very active during the Euros. There's going to be some live episodes. There'll be some live video content coming out as well. So thank you for sticking with us, those who have. It's been great reception on the last episode about David Moyes, and I hope this does as well the same. So thank you very much. You can find all our information at www.fixingfootballpodcast.com, and you can find everything there. I'm trying to think what else I've missed here, but I don't think that's it. Should we wrap that up?
It's a good place to leave it.
Yeah, let's leave it there. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Fucking hell. See you later.